Welcome to this week's big review, and it's Scoring Synths by Audio Ollie. A few weeks ago I was getting really excited about this library. The concept was simple: recording synth sounds amped and played back in live scoring rooms, and then recording them with multiple mic positions with vintage mics to create a worldized synth library. And this is designed to play nicely with acoustic instruments. For a synth library, this is pretty huge. It's 75 gigabytes in size with 120,000 samples. You've got up to 17 round-robin variations that have been recorded with multiple synth layers and 8 microphone positions. So let's have a quick listen. The interface for this houses 3 windows: the main mixer window, which has mixing controls for the various hall mics and direct output, and there are controls for mono and glide. There's an ADSR control there for both the amplitude and filter cutoff, and more dials for tuning, velocity and stereo spread. The other 2 windows are for arpeggiator and step sequencer. So I'll begin by looking at the positive points about this library. First off, if this concept and the sounds are for you, then you're going to be in heaven, as with 8 mic positions and options for filtering all of the sounds, it's not hard to get the timbre that you're after. The sounds are authentic, and I couldn't find any duff samples. I did play through all of the patches, well, most of the patches anyway. It must be said that some of the mic positions here are a little noisy, and this does start to build up when you add more mics. To be honest, that's to be expected with any library to a certain extent, and in some ways it actually adds to the vintage charm. The most useful patches I found here were the sub bass, bass, pads and synth swells. It's refreshing to hear those kind of sounds in a live context, and an unusual type of sound that was very pleasing to me. Less successful, I think, are the synthesized percussion patches. To be honest, I just can't think of any reason that I'd use most of those percussion sounds. So on to the cons, and I must say this library is not as easy to use as I'd have liked. First off, I think the interface gets a bit lost in its minimalist concept, with absolutely tiny controls for mic panning, tuning and spread. It's the same story for the polystep matrix, with really dinky little controls for adjusting the transposing of notes. I also did have a problem with the mapping. The synth control layers are so far down the keyboard that even using my 88 key controller, I had to jump up and down with the octave buttons. Maybe there should be an option for adjusting where those key switches sit. Despite the name, there aren't really many options for synthesizing the existing sounds, apart from messing with the microphone positions and using the dual ADSR controls to mess with the sounds. So to me, this library is quite far from being any kind of synthesizer. If you're interested in this library, I would urge you to go over and have a look at the walkthrough videos on the Audio Ollie website, because there's an awful lot there, and Ollie has gone to great pains to explain exactly how the library works and play through a lot of the sounds. In conclusion, I think this is a big and bold library from Ollie, and I'm sure it will have its fans. However, for me, I think that despite the interesting concept of recording synths in a physical space, this actually creates more problems than it solves. It's telling that some of the interface controls are there to roll off the noise floor and fix the phase problems. I also think that the huge number of mic positions and relatively few presets will hinder the breadth of use for this library. Personally, I'd have liked to have seen fewer positions and more sounds. For me, the value of any sample library is about whether I'll personally use it. Now, I can see myself reaching for this and firing it up occasionally for some organic sounding retro synth for very specific projects, but in all honesty, and I'm really sorry to say this, that I'll just as likely go for Omnisphere and treat the sounds with some sort of external effects. You can see what I'm talking about and check out Scoring Synths at the Audio Ollie website. Thank you so much for watching. That's just a small taste of the Samplecast, a weekly podcast and YouTube show for sample library geeks and plugin enthusiasts. You can find out more information at thesamplecast.com. Don't forget to subscribe.